Hey, what's up, Permanent Chill students? Hey, it is Michael, and it is the week of Thanksgiving. And with that, we're gathering just a little different as we lead into Thanksgiving. I know Wilson County students are out this week. I know some of you may be traveling. And I also know that just honestly, some of you and your families, you may be just kind of being really careful in how you're choosing to gather with people, whether that's the grocery store or whether that's school or certainly whether that's church. Because the holidays, I mean, Thanksgiving is on Thursday, and we are seeing numbers rise in our city and our communities. And so I completely understand and respect the fact that a lot of families may just say, hey, let's get to Thanksgiving. Let's not mess that up. And so in that spirit, we're choosing to gather a couple different ways this weekend, and one of those ways is right here. And so as we think about Thanksgiving coming up, and we think about 2020 ending, that might be enough for us to just kind of pause and say, hey, thank you, God, that 2020 is about 5 weeks from being over. But I think also, and we talked a little bit about this last week, and this is not, a new conversation. I think 2020, while it's been difficult and it's been challenging, and I know even me just saying it's been difficult and it's been challenging, it doesn't even begin to describe what 2020 has been like for all of us. And certainly to some degree, some of you, it's been a lot harder and a lot more challenging. But I think 2020, if we're not careful, we're going to make it all bad. We're going to make it all just a negative year, and it's the worst year of our lives. And man, God, just please let it end and let's get to a new year. I kind of felt and still feel like every year we kind of say, we look back and we're like, man, let's just get to the next year because, man, next year is going to be better. I'm going to be able to have a fresh start. But I think 2020, as difficult and challenging as it's been, I think 2020 has still taught us some good things. And like any difficult or challenging situation, there are good things. There's silver linings to dark clouds. There is good even in challenging situations. There just is. Even if it's a reminder that, life is fleeting and we're not promised tomorrow. And we're not promised tomorrow to look like today. And so even if it's those lessons, and some of you might say, well, that Michael, yeah, that feels like a negative good thing because it's like, hey, it could be worse. And it really could be worse. But I think if we're not careful, we're going to get to the end of the year and just say, good riddance. And I get that that might be the overwhelming emotion, but I still think we would be wise to pause, to take a moment and find things, even if we have to work kind of hard, to find things to be thankful. Let me share a little bit of scripture. Let me look at Psalm 100. And I remember growing up around the Thanksgiving table, my dad would read this. We would take just a moment before we had Thanksgiving, and he would read Psalm 100. Now, it's a short psalm. It's 5 verses, but it would just really just kind of remind us that Thanksgiving isn't just, a Thursday in November where we have a lot of food. It's a holiday where we do settle in and we take a moment. And if we're wise, we find things that we're thankful for, specifically thankful for what God has done or what God has shown us or what God has provided for us over the past, year or months or weeks or what have you. And I would encourage us to do that. And so as we look and move into Thanksgiving week, certainly this is the beginning of Thanksgiving week, if you would just let me read Psalm 100 over us. And then I want to just give you a couple things to do as you prepare for not just a good meal, perhaps time with family, and certainly that may look different. Thanksgiving may happen by Zoom a little bit this year for you and your family. And I know that's going to be hard. But again, let's look for things to be thankful for. So again, Psalm 100, let's read and listen together. Verse 1, let the whole earth shout triumphantly to God. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Acknowledge that the Lord is God. He made us, and we are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and bless his name. For the Lord is good, and his faithful love endures forever, his faithfulness through all generations. In those 5 verses, I think there's some key truths for us to remember. No matter how bad or how good life is, we need to acknowledge that the Lord is God. We need to acknowledge who's who. Now, maybe you've played sports, or maybe you've done things. I remember playing basketball. If I was on the court, if the other team made substitutions, a lot of times the teams I was on, we would play man-to-man defense, which means I had a specific guy that I had to defend. No matter where he was on the court, I had to follow him or stay certainly very close to him. And every time the team made substitution, our team would always look and be like, all right, hey, who's got the new guy? My guy went out, I got him. We would always have to say, who's got who? Who's who on the court? We have to identify personnel. Now, if I can take that analogy and move it to life, who's who? Who's in the game? Who's running things? And I think Psalm is reminding us, hey, acknowledge who's in control. Acknowledge who's in charge. Acknowledge who's God. Many times we try to make ourselves God. We may not say that, but we try to function like we're the one in charge. We try to function like we're the one that can dictate every single aspect of our life. And that's just frankly not true. And if we picked our lives to go the way we wanted them, we might say, Michael, what would go wrong? I get to pick every single thing in my life. How could I go wrong? Then we are in that moment abandoning the notion and the idea and the truth that God is all-knowing, that God knows what's best for us. We might think we do. If I'm being honest, I would love to eat ice cream at least for 2 of my meals. Not for them, but with them, because I like all kinds of food. But I would love to have ice cream at least twice a day. Now, that's what I want to do. Is that what's best for me? Probably not. I might have a shortened life, a happy life, but a shortened life because I'm choosing to eat ice cream at multiple meals a day. God knows what's best for us. God knows that it's best for us when he gets glory and not when we get all the glory. And so we need to start just acknowledging that God, he's in charge, that the Lord, he's God. If we don't start there, then everything else is going to get incrementally a little bit off. We're going to look at 2020, or we're going to look at our life with a slightly tinted set of lenses, and they're going to be tinted the wrong way. And so we start there. We need to acknowledge that the Lord is God. And once we do that, let everything kind of filter from there. Let's keep going. He made us. We are his people. We're the sheep of his pasture. He's the shepherd. We're the sheep. He's the one that's directing us to where we need to go. I've not raised sheep. Maybe you've heard Pastor Poley talk about the sheep that he raises. And he said before, if you just let sheep go, they will eat the grass in that field until it's dirt. But a good shepherd is going to know how to move that sheep from one place to the next, to the next, to the next. Maybe moving them from a good spot of grass, but knowing that if they stay there too long, the grass is going to go away and they're going to starve and they're going to wind up eating dirt. And so there may be times where we have to move on from where we are because the Lord knows if we don't move, we're going to wind up consuming everything and wind up eating dirt. So there may be moments in your life that you feel like have really shifted this year, really changed, turned on your head. You wouldn't have made that choice. I would invite you. Where is it that God is maybe directing or shifting you or leading you really that really is going to be for your good? It may not feel like it right now. It may be a journey from that one spot to the next. I get it. But it's going to be ultimately for your good and his glory. Just we may have to stop and ask ourselves the question, where is God leading me? Where is God directing my path right now? Third, give thanks to him. This is in verse 4. Give thanks to him and bless his name. You know what, in a year of frustrations and challenges and difficulty and things that have not gone according to our plans, before we get real upset and angry with God, we need to again thank Him and bless His name. In other words, just tell Him how awesome He is. You know, I've found that if I stop and if I'm frustrated or I'm upset or I'm kind of throwing myself a pity party, if I stop for a second and I think about all the things that God has done for me and continues to do for me, and I don't deserve any of them, then that lessens some of the severity of the pity party that I'm throwing for myself. I realize that, like, yeah, I might be frustrated. Yeah, I might have wished that had gone a different way. But if I'm seeing things as they are, I may be frustrated, but maybe not as much as I was. I may have wished this had gone a different way, but I can still be content because I know that God is providing for me. I know that God is still loving me. I know God is faithful to forgive me. And I know that God is doing things in my life that's going to be ultimately for His glory and for my good. And so I might be frustrated in a moment, but I need to be real quick before I just start to get frustrated and angry at God and what He's doing, because He may be doing way more than I can see right now. Lastly, the Lord is good and His faithful love endures forever. This is a year where we feel like certainly we've been removed from connectivity, from people, from our friends, from our family, from seeing each other at school and coming to church the way that we have. We need to be reminded, and we need to, thank God that His love for us endures forever. He is faithful to us when we don't deserve His faithfulness. And so in that moment, in that time, in this day where we feel less connected with the people around us, and that is a real feeling, I think we need to also come back and say, God, thank you for not giving up on me. God, thank you for providing your Spirit that allows me to be connected to you. Thank you for your Son who died on the cross for me so that I could have that relationship with you. God, thank you for loving me despite the sin in my life. We may feel disconnected from those that are in our life, in our community and kind of our sphere of people and community. But we should never at a time ever think that the God of the universe has walked away or disconnected from us. We may not be worthy of His love and His attention. We may not deserve His grace and mercy and His forgiveness, but He gives them to us. And we would be wise just to say thank you. And so as I think about Psalm 100, here's what I would invite you to do. This week, starting today and through the end of Saturday, so every day, this 7-day week, not just Thanksgiving, I would encourage you to jot down, actually write it out. Write down 2 or 3 things that God has shown you this year, taught you this year, or things that you're just thankful for God for doing in your life. 2 or 3 things. That's not hard. That'll take you 5 minutes. And then when you have those 2 or 3 things, stop, pray, and just tell God thank you for providing or teaching or showing you those things this year. And I would encourage you to do that again every day this week, today, tomorrow, all the way to Saturday. And then I would take a look back every day and just see if that's maybe changed your attitude or your feelings or your emotions a little bit. And you know what? Even if it hasn't, it's still good for us to stop and thank God for who He is, for what He's done, acknowledged that He is God. Kind of that, again, who's who? Who's on the court? Who's on the floor? Who's doing what? Well, God's in charge. It's not me. It's not Michael really in charge of my life. And a lot of times, if I'm being honest, if I try to take too much control of my life, I wind up screwing it up more than I do myself any favors. And so for this week, Thanksgiving week, take a few moments every day, find 2 or 3 things that God has taught you or shown you this year, and 2 or 3 things that you're thankful that God has done in your life or through your life. And once you have those, pray and just thank God for those things. Thank God for who He is. And then as we finish this week, you'll have an opportunity to enjoy Thanksgiving meal, and I will look forward to seeing and connecting with you guys in some form or fashion in the days to come. So have a fantastic Thanksgiving. I hope that if you are able to gather with some loved ones, I pray that it's safe. I pray that if you're not able to, and maybe it's going to feel like a slightly different Thanksgiving, I pray that you're still able to connect with those, even if it's Zoom or a FaceTime or just even a phone call, and just saying, hey, we love you, we miss you, and we'll do this again as soon as we can. I'm just praying that as soon as we can comes a little bit sooner than maybe we all think. So, hey, love you guys, love you, Hermann Shield students, and we will see you as soon as we can.